Designing something and choosing how you want to do something can be pretty fun, but sometimes it's not. I'm your host, Michaela, and today we are talking about the top 10 most expensive design mistakes that cost millions. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like this video, cause it lets us know that you enjoy our content. But now let's get started. Number 10, bridge alignment gone wrong. When you come across a fail like this, it really makes you wonder if somebody was out there playing an elaborate joke or something. There's no way that anyone could possibly mess up a project that important, right? It's less than likely that the guy responsible for this one kept his job. On the plus side, it looks like one lane on each side lines up with the other. At least all they need now is a couple of ramps to send traffic flying over the gap to and from work on their daily commute. Or maybe a catapult to send people and cars to the other side. But the reality of that actually working is probably pretty low. I mean, this guy made one of his own, and as cool as it is, it probably won't work with cars. So this bridge was a big flop and likely cost thousands of dollars to fix. Modern problems require modern solutions. Number 9, French train company orders trains that are too fat for platforms. The French company SNCF flubbed the purchase of 2,000 trains in 2014. The problem? Well, many of their platforms were too narrow to fit the new trains. The mistake cost around 50 million euros, a steep cost to incur on top of the 15 billion euros they had just paid for the trains. The error occurred when the operator neglected to factor in measurements of train platforms that had been built more than 50 years ago. The process of expanding the 1,300 platforms to accommodate their corresponding trains took 2 years, in a process that was equally expensive and time-consuming as it was embarrassing. But I mean, in all fairness, I went out and bought a couch without measuring my apartment, and now it's too big. So I guess the operator and I have something in common. But also, now I've learned my lesson, like now I measure things. But also, if I was a train operator, I would have definitely measured. Number 8, Blockbuster could have bought Netflix in 2000. Before video streaming services became all the rage, you used to have to go to these places called video stores where you'd rent movies. If you kept it past the due date, you'd have to pay a late fee. Blockbuster was the biggest of these video store chains, and it was the best. I mean, the store shut down and it sucked. Everyone loved the place. But then Netflix was a successful newcomer with an interesting business model. In 2000, Reed Hastings, the co-founder of Netflix, met with John Antioco, the CEO of Blockbuster, to propose a partnership. Netflix would run Blockbuster's online brand, and Blockbuster would promote Netflix in stores. John and his team laughed Hastings out of their office. 10 years later, Blockbuster went bankrupt, and now Netflix is currently worth $15.8 billion. Talk about bad luck. Number 7, publishers pass on Harry Potter. Undoubtedly, you've heard the story, not Harry Potter's story, the one about the woman who wrote the books. JK had humble beginnings. She conceived the idea of Harry Potter in 1990 while sitting on a delayed train from Manchester to London King's Cross. Over the next 5 years, she began to map out all 7 books of the series. She wrote mostly in longhand and gradually built up a mass of notes, many of which were scribbled on odd scraps of paper. Taking her notes with her, she moved to northern Portugal to teach English as a foreign language. Married in 1992 and had a daughter, Jessica, in 1993. When the marriage ended later that year, she returned to the UK to live in Edinburgh with Jessica and a suitcase containing the first 3 chapters of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. After she finished writing, the books catapulted her to success. For inspiration, JK shared a couple of her rejection letters with her Twitter followers. In response to Robert E. Galbraith, one publisher says, "I regret that we've reluctantly come to the conclusion that we could not publish Harry Potter with commercial success." The book was then first published by Bloomsbury Children's Book in June 1997. Now book sales alone of the Harry Potter series have grossed to well over an estimated $7.7 billion. Number 6, Robert Wayne sells his Apple stock for $800. Everyone knows that hindsight is 20/20, but still this had to sting. Steve Jobs is a household name, and most moderately tech-inclined people are familiar with Steve Wozniak, but many are unfamiliar with Apple's third founder, Ronald Wayne. Wayne drew Apple's iconic logo and served as an intermediary between the two innovative Steves. Jobs' strong personality clashed with Wayne, eventually prompting him to sell his 10% stake in the company for $800 in 1976, which today is around $4,000, a decision that prevented him from becoming a multi-billionaire. Apple then became worth well over $1 trillion. Despite missing out on enormous earnings, Wayne said he had no regrets in leaving the company. But I mean, I'm sure deep down there's gotta be some kind of regret. I mean, imagine you had this piece of jewelry that it was only worth $20, so you sold it to buy a pizza or whatever, and then years later you found out it is now worth over $1 million. Gotta feel pretty bad. Number 5, Millennium, the wobbly bridge in the Thames. On June 10th, 2000, construction was completed on an £18.2 million bridge connecting both sides of the River Thames. The bridge was then closed 3 days later after a disturbing incident while the bridge was crowded with foot traffic. The bridge was swaying very dangerously. During the weekend it opened, approximately 160,000 people crossed the pedestrian bridge and were understandably alarmed by the rapid movement of the fixture. The cause of the problem was the bridge's popularity. Too many people stepping in unison along the path. The bridge closed immediately following the concerns, but more money had to be raised to correct the problem. It would then be 2 years before the bridge which would open again. Number 4, Star Wars merchandise. George Lucas is a rich man, but it's quite possible he could have been a lot richer. The film studio was very unwilling to fork over the necessary cash to allow the green filmmaker to film a certain science fiction story involving robots, spaceships, and light-up swords. So Lucas decided to sweeten the deal a little. He signed over the merchandising rights for all Star Wars films to 20th Century Fox. That means that Lucas doesn't see a dime from every toy droid, stormtrooper, or lightsaber sold. And I don't think I have to tell you how much money Star Wars merchandise makes for you to understand how much that has to hurt. But here's a little glimpse. In 1978, Star Wars action figures alone exceeded $100 million in sales. By now, it's well into the billions. Number 3, Excite could have bought Google during its early stages. If you remember the early days of the internet, you might remember Excite. In 1999, it was the second most popular search engine. Yahoo was in fact number 1. Google, then called Backrub, was a promising new competitor in the search engine market. But hey, little side note, imagine an alternate reality where the name wasn't changed and people referred to an internet search as a backrub. Kinda weird. Anyway, moving on. Excite was interested in buying the company for $750,000, but passed when Google insisted that its technology replace Excite's. Maddeningly, one of the main reasons cited for Excite passing on Google's technology was because they thought it worked too well. Users would find the information they wanted and move on too quickly, and Excite would lose precious revenue. Excite sold to Yahoo in 2004, and estimates valued Google at $167 billion. Number 2, man throws away 7,500 bitcoins in 2009. In 2009, few saw the way cryptocurrency would take off in the coming years. Unfortunately for James Howell, he was not one of the few blessed with the foresight. Shortly after acquiring 7,500 bitcoins, when they were worth very little, Mr. Howell spilled coffee on his computer. He salvaged and sold most of the parts and got all the information he thought he'd need off the hard drive. The hard drive sat in his drawer for years, before he threw it away for a move. When he realized his mistake and after seeing the way Bitcoin had taken off, he began searching for the lost hard drive in the city dump. To make matters worse, the Newport City Council forbid him from continuing the search due to concerns about the environmental impact of disturbing potentially hazardous waste. Bitcoin peaked when it hit over $19,000 in December 2017, and this means that Howell essentially threw away $148 million. Now call it insanely bad luck or stupidity, but that's just unfortunate nonetheless. Now coming in at number 1, a walkie-talkie building is so reflective it melts carports. You might have heard about a building so ugly that it hurts your eyes, but you probably never considered a building that can melt a car. The funny looking building on 20 French Church Street had to shell out some extra funds for some protection after complaints that it had melted parts of a man's Jaguar that was parked across the street. The glare from the 37th floor skyscraper at 20 French Church Street melted parked vehicles and damaged shops in the city of London. Developer Land Security said it has received planning permission to install a sunshade. In its financial results for 2013, the developer said a solar glare issue drew attention to the building for the wrong reasons. The scorching glare and heat also damaged parked vehicles, including a Jaguar, melting its wing mirror, panels, and Jaguar badge. Martin Lindsay was returning to his vehicle one day when he noticed a photographer snapping pictures of his car. His rearview mirror and part of the body had rippled under the intense heat generated by the reflection of the side of the building. Developers paid the £946 fee to Mr. Lindsay and had built a temporary sunscreen to mitigate sun damage to the surrounding area until a permanent solution was found. I mean, I don't own a super luxury car, but if I was the owner of that car, I would be so mad. But that is everything. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.